Hello, everyone. For this translation management system research project, our team will explore Crowdin, a TMS for software localization, and Java, a project management tool, and employ them in a game localization project. After, we will show our thoughts and other skills that we used when dealing with difficulties. First, I will introduce how we implemented Crowdin and Jira to help us complete the game localization project. Here's the workflow that we used for the project. In the workflow, Jira was the main tool that we used for assigning tasks and keeping track of time and completeness. We used Crowdin to manage our translation content and final quality assurance. As you can see on the slide, Jira has very useful features to help our team set up a logical and efficient project structure. So we used Jira to build up our workflow and roadmap. Crowdin, on the other hand, has amazing functions for project managers to handle translation process. It allows machine pre-translation, so we use Machine Translation to do the pre-translation processes. By doing some research on Crowdin, we found that we can improve our workflow using the pseudo-translation function, where we can check the game readiness and how the game's UI will look after translation. In our previous experiment, we checked the game's UI during the post-translation process, which required a lot of repetitive work because some strings needed short translation to fit in the visual display in the game. Our reflection for the improvement of the workflow is to implement pseudo-translation before the translation, editing, and proofreading. By doing that, we can reduce potential rework by checking whether any strings should be altered before the translation process begins. I will hand it over to Kyle, who will give us some suggestion for crowding.
Thank you, Seeing. Looking at Crowd and working in that environment, we came up with two major suggestions that we thought would contribute to the platform and give it a leading edge over the competition. The first is to create functionality to accommodate pivot languages in translation. In the case of our project, due to limited hiring resources, it was necessary to translate the original Chinese into English and then from English into other languages. In order to do this, linguists had to reference the Chinese to English translations while simultaneously working in the Chinese to other language screen, a tedious process that slowed down the linguists significantly. We understand that direct source to target translation is the ideal, but in accommodating this functionality, Crowdin would stand out and could become the premier platform for translating obscure languages that require or benefit from pivoted translation. Our second suggestion is to add WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get, translation functionality for video games. While we recognize this technology is still an undiscovered holy grail of sorts in the localization industry, it would benefit Crowdin to develop this by allowing their platform to take over an ever-growing corner of the market. Now we'll turn the time over to Connor for tips and tricks in using Crowdin and Jira.
Thank you. Crowdin and Jira are powerful tools, but they can often be daunting for new users. Incorporating these tools into your workflows can be made easier with these quick tips. There are hundreds of add-ons that can be added on to your Jira workspace, allowing for improved productivity. I would personally recommend the GitHub and Slack integrations, which many software developers use regularly. Before you start working, be sure to properly research which plugins you could benefit from using, as it's hard to implement these after work has begun. The roadmap and various boards are the most fundamental parts of Jira and should not be neglected. These give project members a better idea of what other people are working on and what their own tasks are. Now let's shift over to Crowdin. When work begins, it can be very overwhelming for translators or reviewers to see a long list of files, all with 0% complete next to them. I would recommend getting smaller files that be quickly translated or reviewed out of the way first. This makes the Crowdin overview screen a little less intimidating. Additionally, be sure to switch to dark mode to reduce eye strain. Lastly, assign tasks within the Crowdin environment. That makes sure that everyone in the Crowdin workspace has the appropriate permissions. To speed up work, You can auto-approve translations by trusted members, a useful feature for large projects. Lastly, Crowdin makes it easy to save completed work in industry-standard open file formats. Do this once your work is complete to make sure that every major computer-assisted translation tool can open your finished work. Last, I'll pass it off to Tong Tong to share some final thoughts.
Thank you, Connor. Next, we'll discuss lessons we learned while using Crowdin. So first is keyboard shortcuts. Shortcuts can save time and increase work efficiency. However, we didn't notice this page explaining all of Crowdin's keyboard shortcuts until we finished translating into our first target language. Later, during translation, we mainly used shortcuts such as save translation and use suggestion. When you work on an online project, individually or with a team, you should never forget to save your job in time. We also use the use suggestion shortcut a lot because we plan to localize the game into 9 target languages and currently lack human translators and post editors for some target language, such as French and Turkish. So we are temporarily using machine translation for this language. In our future translations, when we need to use a new TMS, we should learn its keyboard shortcuts before we start translating to reduce wasted time. And one function we like about Crowdin is the message board in the right section. Crowdin allowed us to leave comments on individual strings to share our opinion on translations and vote for the most appropriate variants of translations. While collaborating with other project members online, we should maintain open communication with each other and report on our work progress so that everyone is on the same page. The last one, offline translation. After completing our project with Crowdin, we learned to make the best use of the advantages of each TMS to optimize project management. For example, Crowdin supports offline translation, which significantly improved our flexibility and productivity during translation, because we could edit our translations on mobile devices at any time. Therefore, for future Crowdin projects, we recommend each project manager to enable public downloads so that team members can download project files or for offline translation. Public downloads may increase the risk of leaks during a project, but we believe we can avoid the risk by letting team members sign an NDA before beginning. Thank you for watching.